There's a deal to be made in every transaction. Don't be fearful. Go for it, and you can achieve it. And I would just like to emphasize that not everything is taught in schools. You quite learn a lot when you get into real life. Keep learning, keep studying, keep reading, keep doing your research. Because the world changes, laws change, things change, and situations change. Learning should not end.
Let's say if you're speaking to me or someone that you're mentoring, what would you say to them to help them maximize the now for later?
For everything you do, please ensure you've got passion for it, because that passion is what drives you. When things go wrong, it's passion that makes you still want to move on and get on with it. It's very, very essential to financial independence or financial freedom. A lot of young people, they have this celebrity culture and mindset, and they see the celebrity is doing things and I want to be like Cristiano Ronaldo. Are you willing to pay the price?
Hello family, and welcome back to today's episode of Building Your Better You, a space where we stop surviving and start growing intentionally, a space where we embrace growth to be our lifestyle. If that sounds like you and you want to rise above autopilot and embrace the version of you that is waiting to shine, then this podcast is for you. And I'm sure this episode will deposit in you mindset shifts, strategies and lessons that you can apply and take along on your journey of building a better you. Let's get right into it, shall we? Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and in today's podcast we have another very special guest today. And this guest, actually, fun fact, I used to research and talk about property a lot, but he was the one person that I guess I first spoke to in real life that I could touch, that actually was like into this thing, and it wasn't just like a virtual reality, and that's none other than Seun Oguntodu. I'm just gonna read who he is and before I show you his face, okay? So Seun Oguntodu is the founder and CEO of Vanaya Investment, a real estate investment consultancy and management company based in Scotland. Seun has been able to build a healthy property portfolio across various cities in Scotland on behalf of the Vanaya Limited, and has also created wealth for many clients across the globe. With his unique understanding of the real estate business in the United Kingdom, Seun is a Christian, trained legal practitioner, and a family man. Apart from putting a smile on many faces daily, his other hobbies are traveling the world, meeting new people, experiencing new cultures and food, and watching his favorite team, Arsenal, play at the Emirates whenever possible. So, who is Seun? Like, what do people, I guess, not know about you per se?
My formative years were in Nigeria.
Okay.
And I moved to the UK in 2007 to start my master's.
Okay.
I studied law in Nigeria. I then progressed to my master's degree in international commercial law.
Okay.
And yes, ever since I started to work and build a career in the United Kingdom, my wife joined me and we have a family together. And yeah,
amazing.
So it's been a wonderful journey.
Oh wow.
And I'm a business enthusiast. I also like to travel, as you said, travel the world and see places. And and I support Arsenal. I work hard and I also play hard. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So we're gonna have. I know.
We've been planning this for a while.
I know. Yes, it has been a while. It was probably 2021, 2022 when we're like delving into the property talk. But we thank God for the journey so far, and
I like what you've achieved so far, which is really, really good.
Thank you so much. I'm
very impressed.
Thank you. So quick fire questions. I'm going to ask you a couple because I know you travel a lot. So what's been your favorite country in the last year that you visited? So
we're in Malaysia in the Christmas, Kuala Lumpur to be precise, and it was really, really exciting. Lovely people, lovely food. I saw a lot of people had smiles on their faces, which is really, really interesting. The weather was great. It was a fantastic experience, And so Southeast Asia has been very, really, really nice, and loads of things to explore in Southeast Asia. So we're also in Bali as well. So I would say Malaysia. Do
you think Bali is overrated?
Bali is not overrated. Bali is actually very, very nice. Lovely people, beautiful, beautiful things to see there. Loads of activities as well. So it's actually a very, very nice, serene place to visit. As well.
Okay, cool. And what has brought you joy this week?
Oh, this week, what's brought me joy?
I'm sure many things. But
I mean, solving problems, dealing with people, meeting people. That has brought me joy this week. And of course, the weather this week has been great as well.
Yeah.
Plus, my parents arrived a couple of days ago. So
Oh, okay.
that's from Toronto. So that's been,
Oh, wow.
that's been exciting as
The
well.
amazing things that matter. And do you read?
I would say journals and articles.
Okay. I never actually knew you did law.
I studied law.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I guess from your current property
I studied
portfolio.
law, yes. Went to study at the University of Lagos at first.
Okay.
And then I went to Nigerian Law School, Lagos. And then came over to study at University of Aberdeen International Commercial Law.
Oh, wow. Would you do that again?
Yes, I would do that again. I would say I would do that again because, law is not just about the degree law.
Okay.
There are so many elements to law. And it just opens your mind when you study law to so many things and helps you in negotiation, helps you to deal with people, helps you to understand, exactly, your environment. It's an all-encompassing degree. So I would study law again.
Okay. And generally, when it comes to degrees, especially for like young people, you do find that obviously when you see someone that is a business enthusiast or has ended up building a business portfolio, they start weighing if it's worthwhile getting a degree or getting some sort of high level education rather than just compared to just going straight into business. But from your experience of, I guess, doing both, we'll go into deeper talks as to what your career was like initially. But generally, from your experience of doing both, do you think it's necessary to do both? Do you think it's essential, or do you think you can do without the initial journey?
Yes and no. I would say yes, because when you study in university, you learn so many things apart from the degree. Actually, you meet a lot of people.
Absolutely.
You learn cultures, you learn about behavioral patterns, you've got friends, and then you meet others as well. So you learn quite a lot in university that helps you, that tailors your path to life. So I would say university education is very vital and essential. It's not just studying that degree, but you learn a lot within the university environment. But quite a lot of successful people have been successful without going to university. So I can't say, that university is the way. Because a lot of people have learned skills and they've been able to, be successful from those skills they've learned without actually going into tertiary education. So yes, both ways, but the world has changed from when I was
traditional
in university. So yes, when you speak to people like or read books, so 𝐼 Kiyosaki, for example, I would say that pattern, that particular pattern of you go to school, you get a job, and then you buy a house. You can move away from that norm, probably learn a skill or a business and get into investment and start to build a portfolio. So both ways work, but I don't regret going to university or studying university. And I would also tell people after me to always try as much as possible to get that tertiary education.
I think where the comparison begins to maybe make sense also is when, like, if you study in America or in a place where you're going to rack up a lot of debt and like the aftermath of your career might not like match up, then I guess that's where you then need to maybe really look at firstly what you're picking to study and also like if it's worthwhile. But I think where you have access to free education or kind of average pay, then probably like worth comparing to.
Yes, you've got a vital point there in terms of when you've got free education, for example in the United Kingdom, I would say Scotland, United Kingdom, Scotland, you get free education. Yes, of course you can take advantage of that. And to be honest, when I studied in Nigeria, it was nearly free as well. So but when you're talking about the United States, for example, there are certain career paths that you would actually need to go to university for. So you want to be a doctor, you need to go to university. You want to be a nurse, for example, you need to go to have some form of education, so yes, in that sense. But you don't just go to university to study anything. You go to university to study anything and then rack up a debt. It's not ideal. But again, there are certain skills you can learn without going to university. So many IT skills right now you can learn without going to university. Short courses and all that. So all depends on your interests and of course the end goal. What is the end goal? The end goal is to just make money and build a career from making money and gaining experience. Then you may not necessarily want to study university. But the end goal is I want to be a doctor or a medical practitioner, for example, or a lawyer. You would need to study. You need to go to university. But
then I think for the people that also go to university and then stop there without like I guess gaining more skills, like you said, there are other things that you can gain that the world maybe needs. But like with venturing into business, have you found that it wasn't just about like your law degree, that you had to keep the learning on?
Learning is continuous. You need to keep learning every single day, no matter what you study in university, or no matter what path you decide to take.
Go down,
You need to keep learning, keep studying, keep reading, keep doing your research, because the world changes, laws change, things change, and situations change as well. Okay, so you need to keep learning. So learning should not end. You know, we've had, you know, so many people that have, you know, actually studied the degree in university, and then they've also had to learn new things after the degree, and their career path has been tailored towards what the new skills they've acquired or learned. So yes, it's always important to keep learning. Yeah,
for sure. So let's go back to the beginning, I guess. You're growing up, your early childhood. Did you always know, like, what was that like generally? Were your parents entrepreneurial? What was that beginning like?
It's interesting. My dad was a chartered accountant. He liked to study, and obviously built a career from being a chartered accountant. My mom was more into business. So I had a blend. And my dad's career was really quick and fast, and he rose to be the managing director of a bank in Nigeria. Of course, I then understood that you needed to be hardworking to be successful. And then my mom, of course, she was doing her business and doing quite a few things by the side, you know, and it was really good, and it was a good blend, and it was also good for us as children to learn from that. And we were able to then understand that both parts were good, and where, you know, you could succeed by doing business and also by working.
So did you think that you knew which one you'd go down, or were you just open to both?
When I was younger, I was thinking, you know, you would go to university,
the typical,
get a job, and build a career from there, you know. But but I also had the business side of me when I was younger. You know, I wanted to do things, I wanted to create things, I wanted to be creative, you know, and yes, I also knew that, you know, growing up, I would try to do something by the side and try to make money and have some passive income as well. So,
what was your first business? Do you remember?
I was doing buying and selling, actually. With buying little things and selling to colleagues and my friends. You know, at the time. You know, it was good. It was really petty, but it was something at the time. You know, but then I used to write things in books and journals and on how to. I used to imagine in my mind on how to own a business and be you know, and have people work for you, and I used to have that, you know, my subconscious, and I used to think about it all the time, you know.
Okay, so how long were you in law for?
So I did my chamber attachment and all that. I didn't officially practice as a lawyer. And I'll tell you something. I studied law, but I knew I was never going to practice law.
Really?
Oh, wow. Practice law.
I
studied law because, number one, you know, back then in Nigeria, when you study law, they would say, oh, the law. And when you're walking on the street, everybody calls it the law. And I really enjoyed it. This is really funny. I would hang, so after I got called to bar, I would hang my wig at the back of the car. And drive on the streets of Lagos, and you know, you had the checkpoints and police officers. They always had to stop you all the time to speak to you about different things. And whenever a police officer stopped me, then and they see my wig at the back of the car, or they see some sticker that says something about you being a lawyer, just you can go. The law, go. And I enjoyed it at the time. But I never practiced really as a lawyer.
So why didn't you practice, or did you know that was just not what you...
Back then in Nigeria, the pay wasn't that great for lawyers. You know, lawyers would then... So as a young lawyer, they felt that they were training you. So the pay wasn't fantastic at all. It wasn't great at all. I thought, well, why will I sit down in an office from morning till night and end this? So after my law degree, I decided to travel to the UK to start my master's. And then... But
your master's was in law as well?
My master's was in international commercial law. I did that. I wanted to do an MBA, then I changed my mind last minute. And I did. I then studied international commercial law.
Was that with the hopes of practicing law still, or was that just...
No, it wasn't with the hopes of practicing law. So international commercial law was talking about international trade, transactions and all that. I thought, maybe I could get into the corporate world by doing a master's in international commercial law. And that was why I did that. It was always trying to be in the corporate world after my degree, not, in the business world or corporate world, not necessarily in a law firm. Not necessarily going to practice law and, you know, arguing out cases. No.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to listen to or to acknowledge, in terms of not one path has to be like that strict path, if that makes sense. Because some people feel like, again, like we spoke about, if you graduate as this, then you have to work as that. Obviously some degrees are a bit more difficult, like doctor and like medicine, but you still find people within certain degrees that you think can only box them in that kind of venture out. And some people feel stuck, let's say if they can't find a job after, which obviously the economy these days, it's not, you can't guarantee. So like I think it's so important that you are able to, I guess, not work with what you have, but like establish and like recognize that you are valued as a person firstly, but also like with this degree, like it's beyond just the chambers of, you know, the place that you can work in, you know. But yeah, I don't know, what would you say to that? Would you say it's important to recognize that other things beyond your degree to be able to like maximize your potential? Or would you say it's good to kind of step into the traditional first and then, you know, see how things kind of, you know, flow from there?
Yeah, you could step into traditional, gain some experience, but always have at the back of your mind and subconscious that there are other things you can do in addition to what you've studied or what you're doing at the moment. Even if you decide to be a doctor, for example, and you're practicing as a doctor, always have it at the back of your mind that you need another stream of income.
Yeah.
And you need to do something else by the side.
Yeah.
Because I'm never a one-way traffic person. Always try to do different things and, you know, have multi-skills and have different things by the side. Because when you talk about streams of income, you need multiple streams of income to build your passive income, which will then help you gain financial freedom.
Right.
So it's always very important to have it in your subconscious that even if you've not started, to have it always to think about doing other things, other businesses, other things by the side that can other investments, not necessarily those you'll be actively involved in, but things that you can also do by the side.
Yeah.
There are many people who are, you know, accountants and they've got side gigs and they've been able to build, you know, passive income through those side businesses. Okay. And through skills they have also learned. They've also learned on, you know, on their journey. Yeah. And they've used those skills to acquire some financial freedom. Yeah.
So how did property then come into the picture?
I've always had this on my mind that there are three things a man really needs in life. You know, three basic things: food, shelter, clothing. Yeah. And these are necessities. These are things they need, right? If you provide a service that's, you know, where you feed people, you would make money. Yeah. Because people have to eat. Even if they don't, they can't pay their bills, they need to eat. Clothing, people need to wear their clothes. They need to, maybe not even expensive clothing, but they need to have something on. Shelter. They need to live somewhere. Yeah. So I've always had in mind that if I provide a service that links up to one of these three necessities, then you can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong.
So I thought shelter, okay. Property. If I have a flat somewhere in town and I rent it out, people would always want to rent it and they always want to live there. My first property purchase was I bought that property while I was still a tenant, and many of my mates were purchasing properties to live in, you know, buying houses, and they wanted to move away from being tenants, right? And I took a decision, my wife, to say, well let's buy a property. We would rent it out. Okay. And we were tenants at the time, so we bought a flat somewhere around the city here. And we rented it out. So as a tenant, I was renting out a property that was paying my rent. Right. So I then thought, okay, then that's it. So that rent bill is off our list because we have a property that's paying our rent. And that was how we built that. So that was how I got into property. Okay. My first step into property investment was actually buying a flat that, you know, while still being a tenant. Okay. So that was how I ventured into property investment. Okay. And if you ask me, would you do it again? I would do it again. Okay. You know, so a lot of people would then come to my flat then and they didn't know what I was doing. So, oh, this guy's still a tenant in this flat. But I had another investment. I had a property that was rented out. Yeah.
I think that's very wise, actually. You know what I was saying I made a video the other day. Not like I'll change things, but if I could turn back the hands of time, I probably would actually I've gone down buy-to-let first. Yeah. But I also wanted to really move out. So I think it's that bit of both, but definitely if I had a choice, I think that cash flow is important. If you're thinking of investment.
We did speak about it back then. I don't know if you remember. You were going to buy a 2-bed and I said, oh, you actually rent out one room in that 2-bed. Yes. You actually rent out a room in that 2-bed, and obviously that person pays your mortgage. Yeah. Yes. You know, and I've been able to mentor a lot of young people and speak to a lot of young people about it, and a few people have actually done that by virtue of speaking to them and telling them this is how, and we also have instances where a father would buy, so the child is probably going to school in Edinburgh, and the father would buy a 3-bed flat, or the father or mother or parents would buy a 3-bed flat and an HMO, and the child would stay in one room, and then they would rent out the other 2 rooms, and pretty much that works. So it's being creative. It's trying to be creative, with whatever you're doing. So yes, you could have bought a 2-bed flat, or and rented out one room out of. I know that may not be possible now.
I know. I actually did that for the first 2 years. Which was very productive. But even like another property completely separate to me, I think more so for the ability to balance cash flow and like not being stuck in a place, if that makes sense. So like being able to still move around, but you're still like investing. I mean, I didn't have to move around anytime soon, but now that I'm thinking, okay, if I was gonna move somewhere obviously there are always ways around these things, but I would always say, like, if you have the cash flow or the capacity, because again, property is a lot of money, I guess, to get into. Would you agree?
That's a myth.
Is it a myth?
We'll go into that later, but that's a myth.
Okay.
That's one of the myths of property investment. I need a lot of money to get into property investment. In some cases, you don't. We'll go into that.
Were you a student when you first got your first one, or were you working?
No, I was working. I wasn't a student. But I could have gotten while I was a student. You can. There's so many ways to raise funds or capital for property investment. Some people will rely on the bank of mom and dad. For those that don't have that opportunity, there are joint ventures and other opportunities you can use. Other channels you can use to raise money. But we can go into that.
So you said mom and dad. Generally, if you think about, like, I guess, what skills are required to like make it in life, because some people say you can only really be rich if you come from a rich family. Would you agree with that?
If you come from a rich family, that gives you an advantage.
Of course.
It gives you a massive
leverage,
leverage and opportunity, and of course, it gives you that advantage. But not necessarily. Most of the richest guys in the world right now did not come from rich homes. They just took the opportunity when the opportunity came, and they took advantage of the opportunity. Sometimes that could make you complacent. Even coming from a rich home, you need to take the opportunity and use that opportunity. If you don't take the opportunity, you become complacent and say, the money's there anyway, and then you relax. But those that are coming from an underdog position, they don't want to be in that position forever. They don't want their kids to be in that position, and then they strive a bit, work a bit harder, and they take that opportunity, grab the opportunity, take the opportunity, and then succeed.
What is essential for you to take an opportunity, if that makes sense? So obviously you were at this point of you could probably get a property as a tenant, but would you have had to do lots of like reading and knowledge and actually understanding the system? Because obviously you were probably, how many years were you in the country before you made that decision?
I think it was about 5 years.
5 years. So when we talk about seizing opportunities, would you say there's a step before that to be able to seize an opportunity well, or is it just a case of just jumping at any opportunity that comes at you?
You don't just jump at any opportunities come, but be well informed before taking a plunge. If you're not informed, then you could plunge
down.
Exactly. So it's important to obviously make informed decisions by doing a little bit of study and research, of course. Before I purchased my first I'd say myself and my wife, I don't want to say mine.
Of course.
Our first investment, we did some research and of course understood the tenancy laws in the UK, and try to understand the laws relating to property investment, tax, and all those key elements to investing in property. And before we did that, so it wasn't like, let's just buy a flat and have tenants in it, And again, before putting in tenants in the property, you need to obviously also understand that, you would need to properly vet those tenants and have an idea. And what if tenants decide to owe rent? What do you do? What are the laws that protect tenants? What are the laws that protect landlords? You need to understand that. So you need to be well informed.
And I think that highlights the responsibility of learning in general, because some people would probably say, or the people that I guess don't want to put in the work, is they didn't teach me this at school, or the information is not available. You don't see it anywhere. It's just the people that know. But I think that with your experience and generally, you probably find that people actually put in the work to be able to see results, but firstly the work in your mindset so that you're able to see certain opportunities, like being responsible to a certain degree.
Exactly. And especially in business as well, I would just like to emphasize that not everything is taught in schools. You quite learn a lot when you get into real life situations. Okay, as you go along the journey, you gain more experience. You learn from your mistakes. You know? And maybe we'll talk about positive mentality or the growth mentality. You take challenges on board. You see challenges as an opportunity to grow. So yes, it's always important to note that not everything is taught in schools. You know, you kind of learn a lot from experience.
So from your first property, how long was it to the next one? What was the journey after that?
So from the first property, it took some time because we then needed to move out of the property we lived in to buy a property of our own to live in. So because of that, we paused a bit on investment. Okay, it's now time. We've got this property paying our rent. Now let's move into a property, and then perhaps that rent will also pay part of our mortgage. And then we moved into a bigger place, and we bought a place of our own. And then we then set out to go into property investment. But then what did I do? What did we do? I registered for a training. The training cost over £10,000.
Oh wow.
To learn about property investment. So when I talk about learning, is continuous. You need to continue to learn. So when you say, "Oh, I'm going to pay £10,000 for a property investment course,"
it's like,
then people are like, "Oh, £10,000. How much are you going to make from it?" Well, I'll tell you for real, it pays for itself. So I went into a property investment, got a mentor within the course, and then started to learn the various strategies in property investment. So at that time, because I'd learned quite a lot, and one of the things they teach you within these courses is always have a positive mindset, always have a growth mindset. It's all about here, what happens here. Nothing became too big, so that eliminated that fear factor. And I knew that, look, there's a deal to be made in every transaction. So go for it. Don't be fearful. Go for it, and you can achieve it. Even if it looks so big or so massive, and you don't even have the funding for it, there's always an opportunity. You know, where there's money to be made, there's a deal somewhere. So that's where you would learn about angel investors, you learn about joint ventures, you learn about so many things, other strategies in property investment.
So did that heighten your growth and positive mindset, or did you always have that?
I've always had a positive mindset. I've always been positive, but that's propelled it. That pushed it. That really pushed it and helped. In the aspect of property investment, that really, really, really helped. Because if I hadn't gone on that course, I would have probably been limited. I would have said, "Oh, it's impossible. It's not doable." But everything is achievable, actually. So in fact, one of our first transactions, you know, after the course was a rundown flat somewhere in Glasgow. Ideally, I would never have gone for a property like that. It was really, really run down. You know, when they say smelly properties. It was a smelly property. And we used the BERRR strategy for that one. So for your viewers that don't know what BERRR is buy, rent, refurbish, and refinance. So we purchased the property at a very low price because it was run down, full of mold. It was smelly. It was pretty much wrecked. So one of the things we did also was to build a power team. So the power team had, you know, the maintenance team in there. You have a solicitor. You would have your mortgage broker. You would have all the people that would come together and build, and then you would probably have an estate agent within that, and then of course, and then we built a power team. Obviously, through the course, they would have people that already did this, and you could, you know, harness a team from there. And then we bought this property and we fixed it. We got the maintenance guys in there. They fixed the property. And so the first finance we took was a bridge loan. So we got a bridge loan. We used that, some of the funding within the bridge loan to refurbish the property. And then, so say we bought the property for about £40,000. After we did we fixed the property. The property was valued at maybe about £90,000. So we're able to pay back the bridge loan, then take a new mortgage on it. And then that's the refinance bit. And then we rented it out. So basically, the money we've put into that property, we got it. So it was nearly zero investment. So the return on investment is infinity because there was no money put into it.
And it's still yours.
Still yours. Still appreciating the value, and then you're still getting rent from it. Typical strategy in property investment. And if I didn't do that course, so £10,000, it's paid for it.
Were you working in the middle of all of this?
I was working in the middle of all of this.
Because some people might say £10,000 like is a lot of money. it is a lot of money actually,
Yeah.
like to I guess put down for a course. But I guess it also points to the essence of investing in yourself.
You're investing in yourself. There was a payment plan. You were not expected to pay 10,000
Okay,
pounds
just
once.
churn it out.
And then you had of course, because I could use a credit card to pay for it as well. Yeah, it's good, but you're investing in yourself. Every investment in yourself is a great investment,
Yeah.
because there's a massive return on investment. No better person to invest on than yourself.
Yeah.
So when you invest on yourself, on learning a skill that can make you great or can help you in your journey of life, then it's always great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never shy away from investing in myself.
Absolutely.
From investing in education and building knowledge. When you've got knowledge, you've got power. And that's how vital it is to invest in yourself.
Away from property, I didn't grow up swimming, so I started swimming just a couple of years ago.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but I've had to pay for it a couple of times. And every time I pay for it, I'm like, oh, Dammy. But then I look back on some things in my life and I'm like, it's actually the things that you have been willing to, I guess, invest in for yourself. Because now that I can swim, I mean, it's not like giving me money or anything, but it's a skill that I could have been without if I didn't like invest in it initially. Same with property, same with, driving, the many skills. But I think some people, sometimes we find ourselves holding so tightly onto money. Like, if I let this go and there's no guaranteed outcome of return of investments, like it's just going to be a waste. But I think pointing at the fact that investing in yourself can never really be a waste is quite reassuring.
It is reassuring. And it's funny you said driving, because I know a guy that he learned how to drive and he got his driver's license in the UK. And the next thing is he then did some research into the advanced driving instructor's course, or whatever they call it. And he went on to that course and he had his day job. So after he passed the course, in the evenings, he would then teach people how to drive.
Right.
He became a driving instructor as a side gig.
Yeah.
And before you know it, a lot of people then started, patronizing him. And he was able to build a business from being a driving instructor.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
He learned a new skill, he invested in himself, and he's now using that skill to help, providing a service to people, and then obviously making money from it.
Yeah. There's a pattern I'm seeing here in terms of balancing your day job and somewhat your side gig till it becomes the day job, till it becomes the real thing. What did that look like for you? Was that was it a difficult season, or was that something you knew that this is a season I have to commit to be able to see results in terms of balancing your 9 to 5, I guess, and property?
Even if you've got your 9 to 5, you always have to think about a side gig.
Okay.
Even when that side gig becomes your day job,
right,
have other side gigs. Because even the Bible says that you need to have multiple streams of income, 7 or 8 of those. It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would have to always have a side gig because you never know what is ahead of you. You never know what is going to come. You never know, economy, things change in the economy. You never know. So always have it in your subconscious. Even when the side gig becomes the main gig, try to always have other side gigs.
Right.
Multiple streams of income is very, very essential to financial independence or financial freedom. And do you know what financial freedom is?
Well, I define it as like freedom of time and not having to be stuck in a place to make money.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got your income and you've got your expenses, right? Most people have got active income, meaning they need to physically be at work to make money, right? Or to earn something. So you need to go to your office and go work from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Or you go to your trade, stay there all day and make money. Then you've got your expenses, right? But what a lot of people don't do is have side gigs, passive income, right? So when you have passive income, and collectively the passive income builds to a level where that income can take care of all your expenses and all, including your luxuries. Okay, because you've got your expenses, you've got your rent or your mortgage or your gas bill, electricity bill, and then you've got your luxuries, like your holidays and all that kind of stuff, right? When your passive income can pay for all your basic expenses and your luxuries without you physically being at work,
right?
You've got financial independence. So that's financial independence.
Okay.
The only thing that can make you financially free is your passive income and those side gigs.
Yeah.
That's why you continually have to build those side gigs.
That's funny. I was having this conversation with a friend actually, and she was of that opinion, which I completely agree with. But there's a book that I always remember every time I talk about like multiple streams of income, which I know is essential. But it's the one thing, is that book there, the yellow one. It talks about like mastering one thing and not being like a jack of all trades. I think it can be balanced. I don't think it's like a one or the other, because let's say if I think of you now, I'm thinking of like property, like that's where I guess I don't know, that's where your main income comes from, or your main source is, whilst that, you know, there might be other things. So I would still define that as though you have multiple streams of income, you've mastered like one thing. So do you think there's a mastering of one thing that needs to happen? Obviously, there are many people that have a day job and they're doing like side gigs here, side gigs there, but it might not be bringing in as much, because I guess you're splitting your time across so many different things and you're not really like honing in on one thing. Do you think there's that one thing you should master for maximizing your financial power, or do you think it's a case of still trying to dibble and dabble in as many as can be productive?
That's a very, very good question.
If you've reached this point in the video, then you are a champion. You're committed to building a better version of yourself, and you're investing the time and seeking the knowledge required to do so. And I've got just the right tool to accompany you on this journey of becoming better. And that's none other than the Better Days Journal, a journal that was created with you and your best days in mind. Each entry offers the opportunity for growth, for reflection, for gratitude, and everything you need to maximize a single day. In its pages, you find prompts that help you pause and learn from the lessons of each day. Remember, it's in how we spend each day that creates the future we desire. So here's to better days. Here's to building your better you, one reflection at a time. You can grab your copy at dammydays.com or any of the links linked in the description box below.
Yeah, you can master one thing and build multiple streams of income within that thing you've mastered.
Okay. Right.
So that's one.
Okay.
You can master one thing and build multiple streams of income with other things, right? You can also invest in people and invest in other businesses. You don't necessarily... So the aim is to build passive income.
Yes.
Where you don't have to physically be.
Yeah.
Right? So you can actually master one thing where you are physically, and then you have multiple streams of passive income.
Yeah.
So technically, you're splitting your time across different things.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good to master one thing because that could be your passion as well, right? So you could have somebody who's an accountant and he just loves to be an accountant. He wants to be an accountant and he's mastered that skill of being a super accountant. He works 9 to 5 as an accountant, but then he's invested in businesses. He bought stocks and shares, invested in property, and he's got, say for example, he's invested in property and he's got agents managing the property for him. So he doesn't physically have to do anything. It's good. So the answer to your question is yes and no.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
You would hardly find me give you an answer to say yes, that's the way.
Yeah. Okay.
There are different ways to these things, right?
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of successful people who have mastered one thing. So you have somebody who works as a medical practitioner in a hospital. Then he has other things linked to medicine. Yeah. Where he provides a service. Outside going to the hospital every day. Or he's also invested in other little clinics. Yes. Right? Where people are employed and they're doing that business and he's getting some return on investment. So yes, it's essential. But I wouldn't say, oh yes, you need to move away, don't need to master anything and just invest and have multiple streams of income. No. Yeah. You could do it both ways. Yes. Right? Okay. But the main aim is we've not come to this life to work every day of our lives and then leave the world. Yes. You want to get to a stage in life where you just want to enjoy your investments and you don't want to physically work anymore. Yeah. So some people would say, I want to retire at the age of 50. Some would say, I've seen people retire at the age of 40, believe it or not. Yeah. They just want to travel the world. They want to experience cultures and all that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. And they have decided to leave employment, and because they've got so many streams of income that provide adequate passive income to pay for their luxuries, then they retire early. I think that's what everybody should aim to do, because you want to enjoy the latter parts of your years. Yeah. I think in our culture of just saving till then you retire at 60, 70 at this point, and then by that point, like you don't know firstly if you'll be here. By God's grace you will, but secondly, even if you are, your bones are not the same, your back's not the same. So I think it's so important that you think of the now. I think you say, like, you mentioned it earlier, like some people don't actually think of the
20, 30, 50 years to come? Like you're just thinking of maybe
the now.
The next 5, the next 2.
Yeah.
And speaking into that, how much would you say sacrifice is important in those early years of building and mastering and trying to...
A lot of hard work.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work in the early... So when you're within those years where you can physically work, put in a lot of work. Actions and consequences, they say.
Yeah.
So if you put in that work, then in your latter years, you can then relax.
What are some of the things you say you sacrificed in the beginning? Like sleep? Time? Okay.
So build the foundation requires a lot of work. So just like you're building a foundation, you're building a house.
Yes.
You're putting a lot of work in that foundation. You're putting a lot of stones, a lot of gravel, a lot of cement and all that. That's all the work you put in at that stage, and then that then fortifies you and helps you build that structure, which is pretty much your financial structure in life. And then but time.
Yeah. So you're always working?
Yeah.
Well,
I tend to work really hard.
Okay.
But it's important for me to work hard right now, so that in the latter years I don't have to work as hard as I work right now.
Yeah. When did you know that you had to then switch, I guess, to property full time?
Property is never full time.
Okay.
Property is always there. You always do property, but you then do other things.
Okay.
So I've always known that I would invest in property. I was speaking to you earlier. You know, I like brick and mortar. I like to feel touch and then provide a service to people. Providing a service to people means that you are actually putting in tenants and you're providing a service to tenants. Customer service element to that as well. So yes, it's always been that's passion. Again, for everything you do, please ensure you've got passion for it, because that passion is what drives you. That's the engine oil that oils your engine. And when things go wrong, it's passion that makes you still want to move on and get on with it.
That's so interesting, because I was listening to something the other day, actually. And it was talking about how some people have like made decisions just purely based on passion in terms of what they want to do in life, and then it doesn't yield as much results per se. So like, how would you balance that with being valuable in society and like finding a path that balances financial remuneration and your passion? Say like, I'm passionate about playing the guitar, I'm passionate about swimming, therefore I'm going to aim to be an athletic swimmer. Nothing wrong with that, but obviously the hard work and the chances of that maybe establishing me in life is probably slimmer than if I took another path. So like, can you create passion, or do you think it's just going based on your natural, this is what I'm good at, this is what I know to do, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. You can create passion, and then you can obviously have passion naturally, right? And you talk about a guitarist or swimmer or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of that may not make you financially free, but that's a myth as well, right? Because when you are passionate about something, there are several ways and opportunities within that passion that can help you create wealth.
Right.
Okay. So you see people that are passionate about just talking about relationships, just talking, and they've built a YouTube channel. You have a YouTube channel, and I believe you're passionate about it. And we spoke earlier, and I said, just keep doing what you're doing, right? Because all it takes is just one opportunity will make your channel explode, right? But if you keep thinking about the financial reward, or at the beginning, all you're thinking about is the financial reward, and you're focused on the financial reward, then that could drain you. Okay. So if you're passionate about something, right, because you're passionate about it, whether you earn money from it or not, you would still enjoy doing it.
Yes, of course.
If you're consistent doing that thing, believe it or not, there will be an opportunity within it. All right. 15 years ago, we were not talking about YouTube, right? Or maybe 20 years ago, we were talking about YouTube. Or maybe there was YouTube, but it's not as prominent or popular as it is today. So someone who plays the guitar could say, well, I want to create a channel where I teach people how to play the guitar. Maybe you get 2 views or 3 views at the beginning, okay? Then you get discouraged. But because the person has got passion for playing the guitar, and you keep playing the guitar, and then somebody sees that, and then another person sees that, and then they says, oh, have you seen that guy's channel? Have you seen that guy's channel? And then you build on that. Okay, so as long as you've got passion for something, right, you're not thinking about financial reward at the beginning. If you don't get financially rewarded at the beginning, how would you pay your bills? So you may get a job. Okay, and then but still do that thing by the side that gives you joy within, and keep doing it. Believe me, consistency is very, very essential to creating to growth.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to be consistent. As long as you're consistent, one day that opportunity will come and you grab that opportunity.
Okay. So you'd say with consistency, passion can always produce financial results.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
That's the given.
Okay. I like that. Like that.
Yeah.
But so with passion in your journey so far, do you still have difficult days? You
have difficult days every day.
Yeah.
The challenges. I mean, I wouldn't ever say that life is a bed of roses.
Of course.
Never.
Yeah.
You have challenges, everything you do. Okay. You have people challenges. You have economic challenges. You have, legal challenges. So many types of challenges every single day. But I talked about the positive mindset.
Yeah.
Right. People with a positive or growth mindset see a challenge as an opportunity to grow. Okay.
Yeah.
So there will be challenges. Okay.
Yeah.
You get people challenges. I lose money every day.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not every day, literally, but all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I lose money because you've made a wrong decision and then you lose money. But you learn from it and you grow with it. Okay. You wouldn't say, because I've lost money, I'm not going to
Of course.
do this again.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've put in the wrong people, you've dealt with the wrong people.
Yeah.
And people have disappointed you.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think one of my biggest challenges are people challenges.
Yes.
Because quite a lot of people lack integrity.
Yeah.
And they go into business with them or you do things with them and they just change and they become funny. And you've invested time, you've invested money in this and then you've lost money.
Yeah.
But that's not going to make you stop believing in people. One of my weaknesses really is trusting people. I trust people a lot.
Yeah.
And I just believe people are like me. You deal with them and then you trust them, but
not always
change.
the case.
It's
Yeah.
not always the case. So people challenges are one of your biggest challenges.
Yeah.
So again, when you are going into business, you always have to pray for discerning spirit so that you are able to identify wrong from right and bad from evil from good.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So so it's always important. But you go through challenges every day.
Do you recollect your most difficult day yet? Do you have one or?
I've got different difficult days. Or I've got
varies.
It varies. Every day is different. You could wake up today and then you hear that maybe in one of your properties there's an issue and there's a fault somewhere, and that could cost you between £5,000 to £10,000 without planning for it. Or you've done a transaction with somebody and the person has just disappeared in thin air.
Wow.
With your money. Difficult. I recall. There's some things I can't say
here,
of course, obviously, but for legal reasons. But there have been really tough times, especially dealing with people.
Has it ever led you to think of quitting or never?
No. People with a positive mindset never quit. You keep going and you keep pushing, because once you quit, then you're defeated. Okay. You shouldn't have a victim mentality in business, and you shouldn't have a defeatist mentality. You need to always think like a winner, and no matter how many times you fall, you can always get up. I also study successful people, be it in sports, be it in business, and you would find that most successful people have had difficult times.
Yes, of course.
They've fallen on their way, and what makes them great is how they deal with what steps they took when they fell. So yes, quitting is not an option.
Like that. So looking back to 10 years ago, when you were in your younger years, would you have done anything differently?
Maybe I would have, but sometimes where you find yourself may not really help you do anything differently. So in my younger years, and because I grew up in Nigeria, and for those of you that grew up here, you've got more opportunities. So you had more opportunities to finance and all that. So I could easily say on this podcast that, I could have started investing in property early. But
Nigeria wouldn't
did I have the enabling environment to do that? But for the younger people who I mentor now in the UK, I tell them, you know what? When you get that job, go for it. Go and get something. Invest in property, because they've got the environment that could provide that finance where they can leverage on. But in Nigeria, I didn't have that opportunity. So if you say could I have done anything differently, I could have been born in the UK, but that's not within my control.
Yes, of course.
So yes, what I did back then really helped me to where I am right now. But what I am doing now is to ensure that those I mentor are able to hinge onto those opportunities and grab those opportunities and do better.
Okay. And so would you have started property investing earlier?
In the UK,
yes.
I think when I started in the UK was the quickest. I mean, that's as early as it could get,
okay.
Because I started early. Obviously, I started 5 years after getting here, and I told you about the flat I bought, and being a tenant and renting out property. So yes, I could have started earlier, but again, opportunities.
Yeah. So let's say if you're speaking to me or someone that you're mentoring in your younger years, what would you say to them to help them maximize the now for later?
I was talking to a gentleman a couple of years ago and said, he said, "Uncle, I want to buy this car, a BMW."
Oh yeah.
After he got his job, and I said, "Oh, why do you want to buy a BMW? You don't need a BMW right now. What you need to do is pretty much start gathering some money to buy a property of your own." And he listened to me, and he bought a property of his own later. Got a 2-bed property, as I said to you, rented out 1 room, and he's making money investing. And yes, he's happy today because he can now buy his BMW.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I tell the younger people that, look, try as much as possible to put in the hard work. Okay. Try as much as possible to always think about investment. Try as much as possible to always think about a side hustle. And that will help you. You may not live the lifestyle like some of your colleagues are living because they've decided to buy that BMW and go into a finance deal and they're paying that huge finance every month in addition to their rent. Yeah. Living big and living happy. But, I think,
so put your head down. And
exactly. Get into that work and get into that investment mentality, positive mentality, mindset, and go for it.
Yeah. I think is it important to always think, I guess, ahead? Because obviously sometimes in a job as well, especially when you're young and you're putting in the hours, you're working full time. Like you said, maybe the pay initially might not be great and there's prospects for growth and stuff. Let's say there's a scenario of a young person that has different opportunities and you're looking at what one to go for in terms of work opportunity. Should thinking ahead in terms of investment affect the one you go for in terms of, let's say, a higher pay or work culture or whatever benefits may bring? But mostly in terms of pay, should you be making your, I guess, career decisions based on that as a young person, or should you be focused on other things then, maybe, I don't know, building the skills, getting the experience? Because then balancing that with, obviously I need money to invest, so should I just go for the highest paying job, things like that? It doesn't
always have to be about the highest paying job.
Okay.
It has to be about your career path, your ambition and your vision. Okay, so there is a job that is paying 10 grand more, but have you studied the culture of where you're going to? Sometimes it's not about money, to be honest. It's about satisfaction. It's about your career path. It's about, so you could go for a job where they offer fantastic mentorship programs and they have, so when you go for an interview, you'd say, what plans have you got for me in the next 5 years? And they tell you, well, we want to help you build your career.
Okay.
We're going to give you this person, you're going to give you a mentor, we're going to help. Then that's actually better than the job where you're getting 10 grand more, but they don't really care about you. They're not a people business. All they think about is, okay, you get the job done and go home. Okay, so yes, I know you would need money to invest in that side gig or that business, but in the long run, right, working for a bit, getting a job that really cares about your growth and your ambition is much better than that additional salary. And of course, you also have to think about your environment and the cost of living in the city where you're picking up that job. So a job that pays £10,000 more in London than Aberdeen may not be the most suitable. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say, despite, because some people say it's never enough in terms of, let's say, your income and what you're getting monthly, but would you say there's always a way in your earnings to be able to keep aside for saving and investments as a young person?
So it's all about the lifestyle you live.
Okay.
You've got to look at your income and your expenses, right? It all depends on your lifestyle. If you want to live a modest lifestyle because you are looking or thinking of the future to invest in the future, then of course you would want to live that modest lifestyle to be able to save more. Okay. All depends on your lifestyle.
So you have the power to choose, I guess.
You've got the power to choose, to decide how you want to live your life. And the thing is, what are you focused on? Okay, are you saving money to invest in yourself so you can learn a new skill? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you want to make those sacrifices early and say, well, rather than rent a 2-bedroom apartment, why did I rent a 1-bedroom apartment? And then save money, and then get a skill that I can use to help myself.
Yeah.
So it all depends on you. You've got the power is in your hands, pretty much.
Yeah. Amazing. And now that you, I guess, balance a lot of things, how do you find the time? If you say there's no time, like, how do you balance it all?
Yeah, so you need to find the time. So as I said, hobbies, traveling, yeah? So a lot of people say, oh, why do you travel a lot? And I said, if I don't travel, I'm going to go mental in Aberdeen, because exactly. So finding the time means planning, takes a lot of planning. And then you've got to, obviously, my wife shares my passion as well. So it makes it easier for me to do those things.
Yeah.
So from the beginning of the year, we already plan, where we're going and what we're doing. So because I spend a lot of time working and all that, I need to make out time for my family. So we plan those intentionally plan those holidays.
Yeah.
And then we go away, and then we relax, cool off, and set our batteries and then set the system, the batteries, and then come back.
So when you're, I guess, at home, you're in like work mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly. But then I take out time. Of course, I told you I watch Arsenal.
Yes.
So I take out time to watch the games. Whenever I can go to the Emirates, I go there to watch the games. And yes, that's how I cool off and relax. I intentionally create those moments and times. Yeah.
So it's about your intention and how you manage your time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You've spoken about your wife a lot, which I love. Speaking to, I guess, your partnership, how important has that been in your journey, in both your journeys of growth, and in terms of getting someone that is like-minded or can support the journey, really? How key has that?
It is very important. Even when we're courting, we learned to support each other, to lean on each other's skills and abilities to build. Sometimes I'm guilty of probably not listening. And what I've learned, especially with my wife, is whenever she gives me an advice, do not do this, and I end up doing it, it just gets wrong. Especially when it comes to people. She knows she studies people better than I do.
Okay.
So I told her I've got a weakness when I trust people.
Yeah.
She's not like that. So she would say, are you sure?
Yeah.
And then say, well, you do it this way, or do it the other way. And sometimes you feel, no, what does she know?
Yeah.
I will do it this way. And then I end up, having eggs thrown on my face, and then I'll go back and say. So it's always good to lean on each other's skills and abilities. So if she's got the skill or the ability to study people, to understand people, then you lean on that skill, and then you've got the investment skill too. Then once you harness both skills, you've got synergy, and then you can grow. So it's always important for partners to understand each other's skills and abilities, and lean on each other and take advantage of that. Because they say diversity should actually make you strong. We're all diverse, we've got different cultures and upbringings and all sorts. So you need to harness those diverse ideas and diverse skills to actually build, to be a formidable team. That's what we do.
Yeah. Do you think it would have been more difficult otherwise?
Yeah, it would have been more difficult. Yeah. It would have been.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
When you talk about having like the positive mindset and whatnot, is there any other, I guess, mindset that you feel like has been key for your journey so far and the journey ahead? Like, what's one thing that you always like hold on to when you're approaching?
I talked about passion, challenges.
Yeah.
Criticism. When you're criticized, do not take it personal, right? Just take it on board, okay? Pick the positives within those criticisms and take that as an opportunity to improve.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I've learned. And of course, I talked about passion, tenacity, resilience is also important.
Yeah.
And when things go wrong or when things go, just have that mindset of, things are going to get better.
Yeah.
It's always important. So these are key elements of that positive mindset. And you would probably have noticed that whenever I talk publicly or speak to people or mentor people, I start by talking about growth, positive and growth mindset. Because without that mindset, you cannot do any of this. You can't go into property investment if you don't have a positive mindset. You need to be open-minded, for example. Think of new ideas, innovation and ideas, opportunities. So you can't go into that if you are not open-minded. These are the key elements. These are things that have helped me.
Yeah.
So within that positive or growth mindset, there are various elements within that capitalized on and have been able to help.
Yeah. What would you say to young people, I guess, because you mentor them a lot, like what's one thing you wish they understood?
One thing I wish they understood is, life is not a bed of roses.
Okay.
A lot of young people these days just want to just enjoy life and,
Yeah.
work and enjoy life. It's good to enjoy. I mean, when I was in university, I partied. But I was still focused. I still knew that, this is just, this is temporary happiness, and there's the challenges ahead, So life is never a bed of roses, okay? There will be challenges ahead. Yeah. How you deal with those challenges is how well you can fortify yourself to face those challenges. So yes, that's the advice I give young people all the time. Yeah. Apart from obviously keep talking about positive and growth mindset, you need to understand that things don't come easy. Things don't come easy. A lot of young people, they have that celebrity culture and mindset, and they see the celebrities is doing things, and I want to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, but do you actually know that Cristiano Ronaldo trains better than most footballers out there? Yeah, spends a lot of time training. Are you willing to pay the price? If you're willing to pay the price, then you can be that person. Okay?
So even if you're stuck or you feel like the journey is a bit, there's always a way out if you're willing to pay the price.
If you're willing to pay the price. So for every end result of success, there is a price to pay. So you need to pay the price. Either you want to learn a new skill and you pay for it, and pay with your time and your money. You put in a lot of hard work. Even in your secular job, there's always a price to pay to excel.
Yes, of course.
You've got to, even in university, in school, or in primary school or secondary school, I don't know who's watching me right now, but you need to pay the price. You need to put in study time.
Yes.
If you don't put in the study time, then you cannot succeed. So I tell young people, you need to be ready to pay the price. Yeah. It's not going to come by you see guys on YouTube, they have 10 million views, 1 million, 10 million, whatever. They've paid the price. Yeah. It hasn't come easy. Yeah. So don't be fooled by what you see on social media, right? Yeah. Just have it at the back of your mind that you need to work hard and pay the price.
Yeah. That's so deep. Yeah. It can be painful sometimes, but
it can be. It's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. But finally, what does building your better you mean for you? Like, what is that when you think about building a better you?
Building a better you means making yourself more valuable.
Okay.
So, for every individual, you must bring something to the table. If you don't bring something to the table, you will be of less value. Okay? So again, when I speak to people, I always talking about creating value. As an individual, you must create value. So building a better you means investing in yourself, time, whatever you need to invest in yourself to create value. Yeah. So if you work for a company, right, for example, and you don't create value, you will be pushed away. Yeah. Okay, you say nobody's indispensable. Yeah. Right? If you don't create value, you will be dispensed. Yeah. Simple as that. Let's talk about marriage, for example. A husband or a wife must create value. They must bring something to the table. Not necessarily money.
Yes, of course.
So the husband may say, okay, I would go out there and work and bring money. So that's him creating value, bring money to the table. The wife could say, well, I will take care of the kids. I would teach the kids. I will be there for them because you spend a lot of time away. And then she's also creating value. Or she's a homemaker and she creates value. Everyone must create value. But if the husband is bringing all the value in and the wife is not, and vice versa. So the woman is bringing all that in, and the man is just laying on his bed or putting his legs on the stool and watching TV all day. Then they will need to have a very serious conversation. Yeah. Right. So just like every individual must always bring value, bring something to the table. Yeah. So it's always important to be valuable. So when you're building you need to build yourself to the level where you create value. So if you work for a company, is there something extra you bring? If you are so valuable and without you they cannot do certain things, then when they're having their structural review, they can't get rid of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? the same thing with business as well. You're creating value, you're bringing value, you're creating value. When you create value, then people want to engage in your service.
Yes.
When you investing in property, you are building a portfolio. You're bringing value because people want to rent your property.
Yeah.
So in everything you do, always ensure that you are creating value.
Yeah, and there's a building that has to happen there. It's not just
Exactly.
your natural state is valuable.
Correct.
I mean, you are valuable, but
You are, yeah, but you need to build yourself to be able to be more valuable.
yes. Any last words for the audience? Anything you want them to? I mean, you've given us so many gems already.
I've said a lot of things today already.
So many.
But always think positively. Never relent. Never think of quitting. Always think positively. There's always a better tomorrow. Things will always get better.
Yes.
No matter the situation, things will get better.
Yeah.
You know, never give up. Because the challenge you're facing right now, millions of people have faced those challenges and they have been able to overcome those challenges.
Absolutely.
So always see a challenge as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And to do better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening. And as I always say, as iron sharpens iron, I hope this episode has been able to sharpen you and build you to be better. Thank you so much for coming on this. I hope you had a lovely time.
I've had a wonderful time and it's been a wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. See you guys in the next episode. Bye. And that's a wrap on today's conversation. Take a moment to reflect. What's one small move you can make today towards a better you? If you love this episode, it would mean so much if you hit the subscribe button, left a review, or shared it with someone you care about. Until the next episode, keep building, keep growing.